The first thing she said to me that night wasn't hello. It was a whisper, barely a breath against the silence. You shouldn't stay tonight. I remember the way her hand trembled on the edge of the door, the way her eyes refused to meet mine. The porch light flickered behind me, casting long shadows across her face, turning her expression into something unreadable, or maybe something I didn't want to read. I should have listened. Instead, I stepped forward and closed the door behind me. Her name was Alara, and for 3 years, she had been the calm in my chaos. We weren't perfect. We argued about small things, dishes left in the sink, messages replied to too late, dreams that didn't align. But beneath it all, there was something steady. Something that felt like home. That's why her words that night didn't make sense. You shouldn't stay tonight. It sounded less like a warning and more like a goodbye. But I wasn't ready for either. I'm not going anywhere, I said softly, placing my keys on the table like I had done 100 times before. Not tonight. She turned away quickly, like my voice hurt her. You don't understand. Then help me understand, I replied. Silence. The kind that stretches too long, that fills every corner of a room until it becomes unbearable. I don't want you here tonight, she finally said, her voice cracking. Please. Please. That word should have stopped me. It should have made me open the door again and leave. But love makes you stubborn. It makes you believe that staying is always braver than leaving. I'm staying, I said. And that's when everything began to unravel. The house felt different. Not physically, everything was where it should be. The couch still dipped slightly on her side. The bookshelf still leaned a little to the left. The faint scent of lavender still lingered in the air. But something underneath it all had shifted. Alara moved like a stranger in her own home, pacing, checking the windows, glancing at the clock every few minutes. Are you expecting someone? I asked. No. Then what's going on? She stopped, her back facing me. I'm trying to protect you. Those words hit harder than anything else. From what? I asked, my voice quieter now. She didn't answer. Midnight came slowly, like it didn't want to arrive. The ticking clock on the wall grew louder with each passing second. Alara sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly together, her eyes fixed on nothing. I sat across from her, watching, waiting, trying to piece together a puzzle with missing parts. Talk to me, I said gently. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. I made a mistake, she whispered. What kind of mistake? The kind that doesn't just go away. My chest tightened. Did someone hurt you? She shook her head. Did you hurt someone? Another pause. Then, barely audible, not directly. That answer chilled me more than any confession could have. At exactly 12:17 a.m., there was a knock on the door. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just, certain. Alara froze. Her fingers dug into the fabric of the couch, her breathing shallow and uneven. They're here, she whispered. My heart began to race. Who? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. You should have left, she said. The knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I stood up, every instinct telling me to be careful. I'll handle it. No. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't open it. Why? Because they're not here for me, she said, her voice breaking. They're here for you. The world seemed to tilt. For me? I repeated. She nodded, tears finally spilling over. I didn't know. I didn't know it would come to this. Start talking, Alara, I said, my voice firmer now. She took a shaky breath. A few months ago, I got into trouble, she began. Financial trouble. I owed money to people I shouldn't have been involved with. I thought I could fix it before you ever found out. My stomach dropped. How much? Enough. And what does that have to do with me? Her silence was the answer. The knock came again, louder this time. You used my name, I said, the realization hitting me like a punch to the chest. She closed her eyes. I was desperate. You told them I'd pay. I thought I could handle it before they came to you. But you didn't, I said, my voice hollow. No, she whispered. I didn't. The door handle rattled. Whoever was outside was done waiting. My mind raced, anger and fear colliding inside me. You should have trusted me, I said. I was afraid you'd leave, she replied. And now? Her voice broke completely. Now I'm afraid I've lost you anyway. I walked toward the door. Don't, she pleaded. Please don't open it. But I couldn't just stand there. I opened the door. 2 men stood on the porch. Calm. Composed. Dangerous in the quietest way. Evening, one of them said. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me before Alara could follow. Whatever this is, it's between you and me, I said. The man smiled slightly. That's exactly what we were hoping for. What followed wasn't a fight. It wasn't violence. It was worse. A conversation. Numbers were mentioned. Deadlines were set. Consequences were implied without ever being spoken. By the time it was over, my hands were shaking. You've got 48 hours, the man said before they left. When I stepped back inside, Alara was crying. I'm so sorry, she said. I believed her. That was the hardest part. I know, I replied. We didn't sleep that night. We talked. About everything we should have talked about months ago. About fear. About pride. About the things we hide from the people we love because we think it protects them, when really, it just builds a wall between us. I never wanted to drag you into this, she said. But you did, I replied gently. She nodded. Over the next 2 days, we worked together. We sold what we could. Called in favors. Faced uncomfortable truths. It wasn't easy. But it was honest. And for the first time in a long time, we weren't hiding from each other. When the 48 hours were up, I stood on that same porch again. This time, Alara stood beside me. We face it together, she said. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman who made a mistake, but the woman who chose to stand and fix it. Together, I agreed. We paid what we could. Negotiated the rest. It wasn't perfect. But it was enough. Weeks later, the house felt like home again. Not because nothing had happened, but because everything had been faced. One night, as we sat quietly on the couch, she turned to me. Why didn't you leave that night? She asked softly. I thought about it for a moment. Because love isn't about leaving when things get hard, I said. It's about staying, but only if you're willing to face the truth together. She nodded, tears in her eyes again, but this time, they were different. Lighter. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't walking away. It's closing the door, and choosing to stay. But only if staying means fighting for honesty, for trust, and for each other. Because love doesn't survive on silence. It survives on truth.